You know what? These YouTube videos are really great, but they're a lot more fun if you like, comment, and subscribe. It doesn't cost you a dime, and it brings more YouTube comment to you, particularly me. Don't you want more me? So here we are again in the Great Outdoors Garage with another project. Now this is not an exciting project. This is one of those it needs to get done, otherwise the van can't go anywhere reliably projects. This van has a massive, massive water leak out of the engine. Uh, it's hard to see, but when you look underneath you can see the fountain is going when this thing runs. So on this, it's probably a water pump that's bad, but it might be something else. So what we really have to do with something like this is take it apart before we even order any parts and figure out what in the world's going on. So that's going to be my journey over the rest of the day and maybe even the next few days, is to blow this thing completely apart and see what's actually the problem in here, what parts actually need replaced, what's okay, this, that, the other thing. Now, of course, if this was a vehicle that you really cared about, that you know was one of your forever vehicles, you'd just go in there and replace everything, make everything all nice and new. This thing, is probably going to maybe run another maybe 100,000 miles. I really doubt that. I think probably about 50,000 or so. But it's a good for now car, and it's worth going ahead and changing whatever needs to be changed to get it running. It does run and drive really nice. I've driven it. It works great. This passenger side sliding door doesn't work very well, and that's just from use. I mean, this thing, obviously, soccer mom mobile, kids have been jumping in and out of the passenger side of this thing for years and years, and it's just wore that door out. I've got it where it's good enough to work now. It'll close. You kind of have to help it, but it will close. So, it's a good van. It's worth doing the work on. So it's a matter now of going in there and getting after it. So here's the beginning of the journey. We've got to take all of this loose, including this motor mount down here, which I've started to take loose, and clear all this away so we can actually get down to the timing belts and get to the water pump. My understanding with these engines is the water pump's actually driven off the timing belt, which is actually kind of a good thing, because if you think about it, if your timing belt breaks, your engine stops. Or if, for instance, you lose water pump drive, your engine should stop, because if you overheat your engine, you're going to ruin it, especially with these newer engines like this that are all aluminum. So it makes it a lot harder for us to get into the water pump, and we're just going to have to dig until we get down there. Here's a nice tool idea. This is called a wobble extension, and it may be really hard to see, and in fact it is almost impossible to see, but you can see the socket down there is not straight on that extension. I can show you a lot better here. Here's some other wobble extensions, and basically the end on these is rounded off so that your socket can fit on there and wobble around, and you can get into tighter areas. Normally I don't need them, but on something like this they're extremely useful. Okay, now I'm getting the indication that I never really like to get. Somebody else has been in here before, I think, because down here, you probably can't see the bolt hole, but if I can get the camera just right, I'm pointing at the bolt hole, I can stick my finger in it, and I can feel there is no bolt in that bolt hole. So somebody else has been messing around underneath this motor, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's why we actually have a water leak. Okay, so here's one of the pieces of the timing cover, or timing covers, plural if you want to call it that. And they're supposed to have 5 bolts in it. I got these here, and that one there was missing. Now, the good/bad thing about it is these actually use special bolts. And I actually like this because this is plastic, and you don't want to tighten the bolt down too much, you'll crush it. This is what is called a shoulder bolt. And the reason why is it's got the threads here, but then it's got this shoulder on it up here. And what that does is this tightens down, goes up against whatever it's tightening against, in this case the cylinder head, and it leaves this gap here where you can't tighten it down anymore and pinch this piece down and break it. So that's good, but the bad thing is that's a specialty bolt, and I have one of them missing now. So not thrilled about that. I've also taken the power steering pump loose, which is not too bad. It's an interesting setup that this belt doesn't even run a tensioner. It just goes straight down to the crankshaft, and you bolt the power steering pump on and it holds tension on it. It's rare to me to ever see a setup like that from factory on a vehicle. You'll see, like on a lot of the old Chevrolet small blocks, they'll do that between the water pump and crank when they don't have any other pumps to run on the front of the engine, like an air conditioner, an alternator, or anything like that. Basically, what you're looking at is race motor stuff there. This power steering pump is not too hard to unbolt. There's a little threaded stud down here, and then on the other side here it just has an ear down there where it bolts on, and we'll be able to see that a little bit closer as we get things apart here, but just keep digging and digging until we get in there. I'm thinking about taking this power steering pump off and just replacing this hose here, because this return hose is getting grody and it's leaking everywhere, and the return reservoir is nasty. It'd be kind of nice just to take all of that out of there, wash it out real good, and just change the fluid on it, because why not? So you've got a hose that's been on your vehicle for a while. You move the clamp back, and I recommend always getting rid of these stupid little style squeeze clamps. But then, how do you get the hose loose? It's stuck on there. Well, a lot of times, if you grab it with a pair of pliers, you can get it to rotate, and then from there you can start pulling on it, it'll come loose. And usually that works pretty well. I want to make sure I got that on camera. Just grab it, rotate those pliers a little bit, it'll loosen it up, and usually you can get it to come loose pretty easily. Sometimes that doesn't work, and you have to take a knife and slit down the side of them. Now, what you don't want to do, and I see a lot of people do this, particularly on the radiator, which is made out of much thinner metal than this is, I've seen them take a screwdriver and jam it, try to jam it under the hose like this and start prying back. And what you do is you crush that hose fitting there down. And then you ruin it. And then the next guy has to come along and replace it, usually me. So always start with giving them a twist with a pair of pliers. Usually that'll break them loose. If it doesn't, carefully slit down the side of them with a razor knife. That'll split them and remove them. Yes, when you do that, you have to get a new hose. But looking at this hose, it's getting pretty near the end of its useful life anyways. And a lot of times if a hose is stuck like that, it's been on there long enough that you're just going to replace it. Okay, I knew there had to be a tensioner in here somewhere, and here it is. You tighten this to tension it, and it pulls on this bolt. I thought this was a stud earlier, but this is the other side of your power steering pump here. So you tighten that screw down, it pulls up on this, which in turn pulls this belt up and pulls it tight. So that's nice to know that that's there. We'll definitely want to back that off, because I'm probably going to get a new belt since I had to take the motor mount off to replace that one. So probably going to end up with all new belts on this. I hate to put that much cash into this thing, but it's probably for the best. Okay, so we got the power steering pump loose, and we just get it dangling by this one line because we don't really need to take that loose. And I'm pretty sure there's like a gasket in this fitting up here and everything, and I really don't want to mess with that. So we'll just leave that right where it is. It's a good pump. It spins over real nice. The pulley doesn't jiggle around on it, so we know we don't have an issue there. But then I look down here, and I've got the front top of the timing cover removed and the back top of the timing cover removed. Now the nice thing was, and the interesting thing was, is this cover had all 5 bolts in it. This one had the one right here that was missing. Now I've also pulled the motor mount, but I'm not super familiar with this engine, and so there's a little trick you can do to keep you out of trouble. I'm going to take the bolts from this motor mount, just kind of screw them back in here part way where they were, so that I don't lose them, and so that I don't forget where the hell they go. It's like with the power steering pump here. You can see I screwed the screw back in just a little bit back there so that I wouldn't lose it. That can be a useful technique. You can also do what's called bagging and tagging, where you get a little plastic baggie and put all your nuts and bolts in it and then write on it what it is. I find that this works in most situations. Now, if you're going to have something apart really long term, or somebody else is going to be putting it back together, then you definitely want to bag and tag. Looking at these timing belts, they look like they have been replaced at some point, but earlier I took my finger down here on the bottom edge and I got some rubber off of it. If I look at the timing covers, there's some rubber in the back side of those. So these belts have been slinging a little rubber. I don't know if I'm going to keep the timing belt on this or replace it just yet. I'm probably going to end up going ahead and replacing it since the water pump is right back here and it's driven off of it. I might as well. Still curious about the leak, because where the leak was coming from, you could actually see it trailing way down here by this idler pulley, and it was running down the front of the block there, which that's probably the water pump, but it may not be. I might get lucky and pull this apart, and maybe somebody did something stupid and I just have to fix it. But it's probably needing a whole new water pump. I can assure you that the humor of the automotive world is not lost on me. Honda. Mitsubishi. I didn't even know Mitsubishi made belts, but I guess they do. But anyway, what's that doing here? Well, it just confirms the fact that somebody's been in here working on this thing before. Okay, now for the next fun part. We've done about everything we can do up top, but I've got to get down here to the crankshaft and everything and do some work down there. I may even have to pull the pulley off the bottom of the engine. It's hard to see down in here. But anyway, there's a pulley down there. There it is. I think I have to pull that pulley off. And so to do that, what we have to do is gain access to what would be the front of the motor, but since it's in here sideways, it's the side of the motor, I guess. But anyway, took the tire off, and then now you've got one of these plastic panels to deal with to take off. And you got these little fellas here. And what you do normally with these is put a screwdriver under them, and there's another one down here, and gently work them until they come loose, and then you're good to go on to the next step. You move this out, and then we start figuring out how to take everything else loose. Bonus point, we found the oil filter. Okay, so we finally got our crankshaft fully pulled off using a special tool which we had to get. I'll explain more on that later. The one thing I will say is that bolt that goes into the crankshaft, as with many of these motors, is extremely tight. And I would have shown the process of removing it, but I had to do some kind of shady stuff to get enough torque on the wrench. And I really don't want to promote that behavior on my YouTube channel because I don't want anybody getting hurt. I know how to do it semi-safely, and I just don't want to show it to anybody else because, like I said, I don't want somebody getting hurt. But now that we've got things apart, we can start analyzing a little bit more what our situation is here. Firstly, there's an oil leak down there as well as a water leak, which is not great. But if I look at my timing cover here, I can see right about here it starts getting wet and then it trails on down. I can see another wet spot right over here on this side. So hopefully, when I get in here and look at this more, hopefully that's some kind of easy seal to replace. If not, I may just live with it. And then we can see down here, we can finally see the snout of our water pump. It's very hard to film in here. And then you can see, I don't know if you can see down here, I'm trying to point to it. It's very dark on camera, but there's actually a spot down there, you'll probably have to take my word for it, where you can see that's where the water was trailing before. And it's still kind of damp there too. So next step now is to just pull this whole front assembly apart as much as we feel like we need to. We've got to make sure of our timing marks because I don't want to screw up the timing on this engine because yes, this is the timing belt. So all that's going to come loose. We're going to inspect every single idler and then figure out what we need to order. Want to see more sparks flying, more heat, more excitement? Go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you like, comment, and subscribe, I can keep doing this and you can keep having fun.